Hi, friends. It's Gina from aSweatLife. I'm here with Dr. Kothari from Innovative Vitality.
Hi.
We've trapped our friend Jennifer in the room with us, so if she leaves, don't worry. We're all safe and sound here at Innovative. I got to be live with Dr. Kothari here today in Chicago.
I'm very excited. It's hot here and it's hot in Atlanta too, so I can't escape it.
Hot in her. Well, I'm playing on nothing. Okay, so today we are talking about cycle syncing.
Yes.
It is a very popular topic in social media. Not every medical professional, in fact, most don't love it.
Yeah, because there's no research behind it. That might be why. There are no studies that really give credence to cycle syncing. But ask me whatever questions you have. I'm happy to sort of go over it.
This is why I wanted to cover it, because I do love a good debunking.
Yes.
And I think like this topic deserves it.
Yeah.
Because we know a lot about, yes, our hormones change, rise and fall very naturally. Yes. But there's the thing that you're saying about there's not a ton of research is essentially that there's not a ton of research on like eating and moving in specific ways in your cycle affects those things, right?
Right. So from like a muscular physiological standpoint, our muscles can handle growth, they can handle exercise at any phase. The difference is more around how do you feel. So what is your mood? What is your energy levels? Are you in pain from cramping? Those are things that are going to preclude you from maybe doing a very strenuous workout peri-cycle. So I like to think about cycle syncing more as sort of body awareness, not saying that, oh, I'm in my luteal phase, so I have to only do these exercises. What I want to make very, very clear is honor your body throughout the cycle. And you want to support it by being just aware of how you're feeling more than anything else. So you might be in your follicular phase, which is usually when we are, and I'm going to go over all the different stages of the cycle because I think that might all have a good refresher on it. But in the first half of your cycle, which is your follicular phase, it's oftentimes thought that your estrogen levels are higher, and so your energy is therefore higher. You might find that you have the capacity to then lift weights. You have capacity to lift heavier weights around ovulation. When you get a little spike of testosterone, you might realize that, oh, I have the energy to lift even heavier than before. During your luteal phase, when your hormones are starting to sort of go down and your progesterone levels start to rise and you become a little bit more inflamed, you might feel more tired. You might feel more exhausted. And so you're not going to have the same energy. The way I like to live this in my life. So I exercise 3 to 4 times a week. I have the same workout routine for like 6 to 8 weeks at a time. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if I can get it in. And I don't change my workouts based on where I am in the month. I may go to the gym and say, oh, well, week 1 of my cycle, I was, doing bicep curls for 17.5 pounds per arm. Maybe my last week right before my cycle, I pick up the same weight and I don't have the energy for it. I'm going to go a little bit lighter. It doesn't mean that I'm going to not work out. It just says that I'm just more aware with how I work out. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I want to pick at something you said, or like zoom in on something you said more inflamed in the second half.
So our progesterone levels are higher. We tend to become a little bit less resilient in the way that I'm being very careful because I don't want anyone to be like, oh, it's the second half of my cycle, I can't do X, Y, and Z. It's more that our progesterone levels get a little bit higher, so we might notice that we're actually a little bit more tired. Our estrogen levels are starting to decline in the second half of our cycle. When estrogen levels go down, our cortisol levels can slightly rise. And so because of that sort of hormonal shifting and the shifting in our milieu, our internal environment, we may actually feel a little bit more swollen, a little bit more bloated. All that is just because of our hormonal fluctuations.
Being a woman.
Being a woman.
It's hard to be like, oh, it's so hard because it's also like kind of a miracle.
Yes, all the things that we can do for sure.
Okay, I do want to talk about a study. I'm going to read this. It's on my phone.
Yes.
So it's a really interesting study that's being done at Harvard by Harvard Health that's using Apple Health data that actually we can opt into if you feel like it. It's specifically being done on women, so women's health data.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that study is they're using it to look into cycle syncing specifically.
Okay.
So I'm going to read a little bit to you, and I also linked so you can have this afterwards. Don't worry. I'm not going to be like, you were wrong. Actually, you were right.
Yeah.
So I'll just
thank gosh.
Prelude. So a quote from that study: participants generally maintain their exercise routines through all menstrual cycle phases, including during breathing. The consistency suggests that bleeding isn't a major barrier to physical activity for many. Meanwhile, those with more regular cycles were more active overall, pointing to a potential connection between cycle health and lifestyle habits. But it's important to remember that many factors can influence both key variables.
Yes.
And they also pointed out in the study that there's no data to point towards cycle syncing.
That's right. What I kind of want to zoom in on a little bit is, what does our menstrual cycle look like? So for no one is quote unquote normal. We talk about what is expected in the textbook. So we think a cycle, a period length or a period menstrual cycle is usually around 25 to 28 days plus or minus. Again, if you've got 31 days, that might be normal for you. If you have 25 days, that's normal for you. That's all fine. So during the first half of your cycle, which is what we call our follicular phase, that is when our estrogen levels are slowly rising. What our bodies are doing during that time is they're recruiting an egg to eventually lead to ovulation, which may eventually lead to pregnancy if not contraception, if conception happens. So you're gonna, it's been a long day, guys. So we're gonna have our estrogen levels go up during our first half, our follicular phase. We're gathering follicles. During ovulation, we have a peak or like a spike of LH. We have a spike of testosterone. We even have a spike of
progesterone?
Of estrogen. So we have those three hormones are spiking. That is when, if you think about it, testosterone is making its little cameo. You might feel like you have more energy during that time. You have more strength during that time. Some people will say that I actually feel like I have energy to do 2 workouts. That's during your ovulatory phase. Then after that, ovulation happens, our body then goes into more of a rest and relaxed phase. Our progesterone levels start to rise. When our progesterone in and of itself is very much a sedative. It acts centrally in our brain on these receptors for GABA, which is a relaxing hormone. So it relaxes us. It relaxes us, cerebrally, but it also relaxes our GI tract, which is also why a lot of us during the second half feel so bloated and feel so constipated. And so those are the big hormonal shifts that happen. And right before you have bleeding, which the first day of bleeding is actually considered the first day of your new menstrual cycle. So when you have your bleeding, you can then have some cramping. And so it's not about, changing your workouts. It's about supporting your body during that time. There are some months that you may have bleeding but no cramping, and you can just go about your business. There are some months that you may have a lot of cramping. Some foods that you can eat. Now, we talked about it very briefly, but we do say we're a little bit more, quote unquote, pro-inflammatory during the second half. That's when we want to eat things that are anti-inflammatory. Turmeric, nuts, even something like magnesium is very good to help with that. So those are things that you can do to help support your body. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
Okay.
Hearing you talk about progesterone in that way, I was like, it's like it turns you into a princess.
Totally. And just think of the reason why our body has lots of purposes, but just evolutionary wise, as a female, our body was meant for conception, right? And so during the second half of our cycle, our body is essentially saying, we got to slow down, gear up for a potential pregnancy. That's why we feel tired. That's why we feel fatigued. So it's serving a purpose. So what I really want to implore everybody is to honor their bodies. And I mean that in not like the woo-woo way, but really just understand what's going on in their body so you can have more grace for it, right? So instead of getting angry that why did my workout suck, it's like, where am I in my cycle? Why did I gain weight right before? Why am I gaining weight during this part of why am I gaining weight today? And then you realize that, I'm in the second half of my cycle. It is not uncommon for a lot of women to hold on to water. Progesterone also helps you hold on to some water. You will hold on to some water, so you will have fluctuations in the scale. That's why it's, on one hand, I think it's really helpful to do daily weights because then you become desensitized to weighing yourself. You also see that there are so many fluctuations that happen. And so you're not tied to a single number.
Interesting. Okay, so what I'm hearing is if you were to agree to a version of cycle syncing, it's more of like intuitive workouts.
I would say it's having body awareness and like how you're feeling. So yeah, I mean, there is, I think if you are right before your cycle and you're having like cramps and you're like, I just need to stretch, do some yoga nidra, do some like stretching exercises, focus on some breathing. There's still movement, and even if it's not like a HIIT workout, there's still some movement and purposeful action that you can take, again, to support your body throughout the cycle.
I love that. Okay, I want to talk about an article in Time that was, not to beat a dead horse, but it was titled,
moral of the story,
You Don't Need to Balance Your Hormones, was the article in Time. I think some of us have seen it. It floated around. It was definitely controversial on the internet.
That was so funny. Okay.
But the reason I'm bringing this one up is because it talks about cycle syncing as it appears on social media as intensely prescriptive, and also based on like bits and pieces of science.
Yes.
As we like to call pseudoscience.
That's right. Or we can make anything. We can come up with a hypothesis and have data to support anything you want.
We could say there are aliens in the ocean if we wanted.
Yeah.
And we do. But I'm curious, like, when you think about something that makes you raise a red flag for this might not be science.
Yeah.
What are those elements?
Okay, so let's see, how do I say this nicely? So first and foremost, buzzwords are oftentimes not based or rooted in much. So cycle syncing is we talked about it, but even like the term balance your hormones, what hormone are you talking about? There's so much, it's an overstatement and oversimplification of the human experience, of human physiology, especially female physiology. Are you talking about insulin? Are you talking about progesterone? Are you talking about estrogen? What are you saying when you say the term balance your hormone? That is why I get so frustrated with that term, because it really is a misnomer and it's very misleading. And there are physicians, there are specialists that truly handle hormone health. You know, whether you have diabetes and you see an endocrinologist, whether you have PCOS and you see your OBGYN or a fertility specialist, or you see your endocrinologist. You know, there are so many, hormonal conditions that can't just be fixed without seeing a physician. And I think that's the oversimplification, and then leaning on supplements solely to do this is just, it's not good science.
I also, in that article, I'm trying to remember what I was going to tell you from the article. I'll send it to you so you can read it.
Yeah.
I remember. So it mentions that it's targeting very much so women. This trend of like balance your hormones and buy this supplement.
Yes. Another reason why I am so passionate about women's health and women's wellness is I think the pseudoscientists and influencers have unfortunately usurped that term wellness. There's a great book, I forgot the author, but it's called The Wellness Industry is Unwell. And it's really true. And there's a lot of fear-mongering language, right? Like a lot of absolutes and a lot of urgency and emergency. And the truth is, women unfortunately it feeds into an ancient narrative that, women's bodies are inherently inferior, or they're complex, or they're complicated. And so I think things in terms of even going back to your first question, like what do I look out for, are fear mongering in their language, buzzwords, overselling of supplements. Oftentimes these people that are using the word balance your hormones, or even saying like I decrease my cortisol by taking X, Y, and Z, like that's not really a thing. Those are red flags for me. That for me is like, this does not pass like the sniff test.
Okay, and I'm going to ask a question from an ambassador. So this is from an ambassador who said, I've heard a lot about cycle syncing and fasting. I think we could talk about fasting. I feel okay with it.
I am, yeah. No. So fasting is a tool. It is a tool in our toolbox. Here at Innovative, we love to have different tools that we like to employ. One of them is intermittent fasting, and it can be helpful. It can help with metabolic flexibility. It can help with, creating time restricted eating, which I think we spoke about last time. So in terms of pacing it onto your cycle, I don't know if there's much science to it. The truth is, during our second half of our cycle, our luteal phase, our basal metabolic rate is ever so slightly elevated. Our metabolism is a little bit higher. I don't know that fasting is something that I would recommend doing. Again, it's a lot about body awareness. And to your point, I think we're in a lot of information overload as a society. And I think when we do get prescriptive advice, it makes it sound really easy and like appealing because it's prescriptive, right? It's like I can take the thought out of it. I would caution yourself, and the only person that should be dictating how you eat, how you move is going to be you in consultation with your physician. And even then, it's going to be, how do you feel? There are times when I recommend intermittent fasting to a patient of mine and it doesn't work for her. I'm not going to sit here and say you have to do it. It's how does that fit in your body?
So she heard specifically that it helps with cramps. I don't know if there's data for that.
I don't know if there's data for that either. I think maybe because I'm trying to understand, with cramps are mediated by something called prostaglandins.
So that's about cramps.
It's one of those inflammatory cytokines or proteins that are released in our body during cramping. In particular, anti-inflammatory medications like ibuprofen target that, and so that's why ibuprofen really works. I would even say taking, again, the magnesium helps with that, with the prostaglandins. So I'm not familiar with how fasting can impact prostaglandins and cramping. So I'll have to sort of button that and look it up.
Yeah, we're gonna scour NIH for you.
Yes.
We'll do a little search. Okay, so also got a question about tracking cycles.
I love that.
Okay, good. What do you recommend?
I think everyone should be tracking their cycles. It's tracking is very, I should have written this out, but it's, first thing I would say is, how long is your cycle? So how many days are you bleeding? How long is your overall cycle? So how many days in between your two periods? So is it a 25-day cycle? Is it a 28-day cycle? Again, the textbooks may say, 25 to 32. Maybe for you, it's a 34-day cycle, and that's fine. So I want you to know, sort of keep track of how long your cycle is. That's the first thing. Then, how long the duration of bleeding is. That's another thing. The next thing is how you're feeling. So cramps, I would think about, headaches. Do you have constipation? So things that, like, symptoms, again, body awareness around your cycle. And so the apps that I really encourage there's only one. I think there are multiple. So one is the health app, the Apple Health app. It's very easy to log it. That's what I use. The next would be something called Flow.
Okay.
I've never used it, but I've heard that it's really good. But I would say tracking duration, like how long your cycle length is, how long you're bleeding, your symptoms. And then if you start noticing, you get headaches the second half of your cycle, these are things that are just going to help you if you're in your early 20s and 30s for, conception, and if that's a goal of yours, or if it is, or afterwards for your perimenopausal journey.
Yeah. Okay, so I noticed you're wearing an Oura ring.
Yes.
Oura ring now they have cycle
statistics,
and you can also do pregnancy.
I think you can.
Or your
ovulation.
Thank you. Your ovulation days.
How do they do that? So they check your basal body temperature, what they're doing. And so that's how you can tell if you are, where you are in your cycle. I don't know. I feel like this month for me, it's been a little bit awesome.
It's hot.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. But it's definitely, I definitely feel like it's a great tool. I don't actually use it as often to track my cycle.
Okay.
I will say, though, if you are religious about wearing it every night, unlike me, and half the time I forget to charge it, that might be why it's not accurate for me, but that's just something to consider.
Yeah. There are I've been tracking my cycle pretty religiously, so I'll throw out a couple because Instagram feeds me these.
Yes.
There are two that are sort of served me a lot. One's Mira. I don't know much about Mira, but I have used Anito.
Okay.
And Anito is like a daily urine test that I'll show you the app afterwards. But it's like a daily urine test that measures your LH, your progesterone, your estrogen. I don't know how accurate it is, though.
I don't either.
Because those are a lot of tests to do from urine.
Though they are, but I don't know how you get a number on it, how they quantify it.
I mean, I'll show you it.
Yeah,
I'll show you.
There's so, this is the thing in this, like, this, the tech world meeting the health world, there's going to be a lot of data. So yeah, that's cool.
But bar none, it sounds like at the very least knowing like cycle duration, full cycle, period duration, and how you feel.
Exactly, is the most important. Yes.
So you mentioned 25 to like 32-ish. Is there like an irregularity that you should sort of be tracking? Is there anything like that you should flag for your doctor?
Sure. So great question. So a couple of things. If you are realizing that you are going, if for you, your normal cycle is 32 days, and then all of a sudden you go from 32 days to 15 days, that's something to be aware of. If you go from 32 days and you start missing multiple cycles in particular, that is going to be something that I would just want to flag. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is a very common, I'd like to think of it as a metabolic condition, but it's a very common, like, sort of reproductive health condition. And oftentimes these women will have multiple months without cycles. So that's something to be aware of.
So if you don't know if you have polycystic ovarian syndrome,
I think we should do a whole topic on this.
Next month.
Yes, because PCOS is so common. There are guidelines and criteria to make this diagnosis, but one of the hallmarks is irregular menstrual cycles.
Okay, wow. What else do you want us to think about when we're sort of perusing the TikToks, the Instagrams of the world, and seeing folks recommend balancing our hormones or cycle syncing?
If you hear the word balancing your hormones, you run the other way and you hit unfollow. Or, I think it's, again, like taking everything with a grain of salt, and also taking that information and then seeing how it's going to serve you. So I think cycle syncing, for me, when I have worked out, I just use it to help explain my lack of energy. Or I went to the gym this week and I could not lift as heavy as normal. And I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, well, this makes sense why. So I think that, taking cycle monitoring allows us to put context into how we're feeling, how we're moving, and how our energy levels are.
Okay. So here's what I'm hearing for everyone at home. As we think about cycle syncing, it's not about a prescriptive plan for your cycle. It's about knowing when your cycle is, where you are in it, how you're feeling, and then modifying based on your feeling.
Exactly. There might be some, one thing to remember, everybody, is when you are in your second half of your cycle, when you're in your luteal phase and that progesterone is rising, our sleep architecture does change. And so one of the things right before we actually start bleeding is that our sleep quality can get poorer, and that will impact your workout. So it has nothing to do with necessarily the hormones. It's really, again, like how your sleep is. All of that plays a role.
One fun curveball I'm going to throw at you.
I love it.
We love a thought bubble. So I have seen a number of like high-level female athletes talk about how they've torn their ACL during their period. I'm wondering if you know anything about that, or is that something I should do a little digging into and we can talk about later?
I think it might still be that same prostaglandins and just like the relaxation that happens. So let's think about this just to get from an evolutionary perspective. We have progesterone rising during the second half, right? When we are also trying to get pregnant. When we get pregnant, our uterus is supposed to expand. So we're going to have some more laxity. And so oftentimes right around that, right around the second half of your cycle, and I don't know when they tore or had their injuries, but
during their actual like menstrual bleed.
I would have to wonder if they were just a little bit more hypermobile during that time because of the hormones.
So interesting, because we know about relaxin, but that's during pregnancy.
It is during pregnancy, but you have to remember these hormones, and this is like totally not, I'd have to look it up, but my assumption is relaxin is produced by the placenta, and you have to I could be wrong, but we'll have to button that, so I'll look it up and have to get back to you guys. But some of those hormones of pregnancy are oftentimes made in the placenta, right?
So interesting.
Before we have a full placenta to be formed, progesterone oftentimes helps get you there.
The body is crazy.
Crazy.
Okay, with that, anything else on cycle syncing you want to get off your chest?
No.
Thank you. A million.
Just don't do it.
Don't.
Just follow your body. Yeah. Honor your body. Listen to your body. Cycle syncing equals body awareness.
Love it. Yeah. If you have any other questions for Dr. Kothari, put them in the chat. We will be back next month, date TBD. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
I love a long goodbye.